Welcome back to Poorly Educated Today in the News, where the country checked the headlines and tried to crawl back under the quilt like a possum that just saw its own credit score. Segment 1, Justice Department gets a loyalty makeover. President Trump is moving to put Todd Blanche, his former personal criminal defense lawyer, in charge of the whole Justice Department, which makes conflict of interest stretch till it pulls a hamstring. I am not a fancy constitutional scholar, mostly because I still think habeas corpus sounds like a haunted medical condition. But even I know the Attorney General probably should not feel like the guy you call after your cousin gets caught selling catalytic converters behind a Dollar General. Blanche has already been steering the place like the temporary boss, and the plan looks like turning the Justice Department from a referee into a cousin in the bleachers yelling, "That was barely a felony." They even floated a huge anti-weaponization fund to pay allies who said they were politically targeted, which sounds less like justice and more like a rewards card for subpoena feelings. Then Congress, of all groups, looked up from doing nothing professionally and said, "Hold on, that might be too goofy even for us." Senate Republicans pushed back, Democrats yelled, budget people sweated, and suddenly that billion-dollar grievance vending machine got unplugged. The bigger point is that the administration keeps trying to turn federal agencies into a personal toolbox, but the toolbox gets stuck because Congress still controls the money drawer. It is like watching a man build a deck with a chainsaw, a grudge, and no permit, then get mad when the county inspector shows up. And speaking of unusual people running serious machinery, let us mosey from justice into intelligence, where apparently the new national security plan is, what if the spy boss came from housing finance? Segment 2, Spy Agencies Meet Real Estate Energy. Bill Pult, the housing finance guy, has been tapped as acting director of national intelligence, because overseeing mortgages now apparently qualifies you to wrangle spies, satellites, surveillance programs, and whatever scary acronyms live in the basement. That is not a career pivot. That is a man walking out of Bass Pro Shops and being handed the nuclear codes because he once balanced a checkbook near a bird feeder. Pulte ran the Federal Housing Finance Agency, dealing with Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and trillions in assets, so the White House is treating global espionage like a jumbo mortgage with night vision. Lawmakers seem baffled, which is impressive, because bafflement in Washington usually has to compete with lobbyist lunches and printer problems. The concern is not just that he lacks intelligence experience, though that is a pretty large raccoon in the pantry. The concern is that he built a reputation as a loyalist who used financial oversight to chase political enemies, and now that same style could sit near declassification power, surveillance coordination, and domestic threat definitions. When you mix political loyalty with intelligence authority, you do not get accountability. You get a sheriff with binoculars and an enemies list on a Waffle House menu. Agencies built to protect the country get dangerous when they start protecting one person's mood swings. And while Washington rearranges the furniture inside the surveillance barn, the world outside is busy lighting the hay on fire in the Middle East. Segment 3, Iran conflict turns gas pumps into slot machines. The United States and Iran are still locked in a cycle of strikes, counterstrikes, warnings, sanctions, and diplomatic statements that sound like everybody is calmly explaining why the barn is on fire while holding a lit match. The Strait of Hormuz is being treated like the world's most expensive driveway, with tankers, missiles, drones, naval blockades, and oil markets stacked up like tractors at a county fair after somebody forgot where they parked. Iran's actions have raised fears across the region. The United States has answered with military strikes and sanctions, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio keeps saying a nuclear deal is still possible. That is like saying your marriage is fine while the couch is in the yard and both families are live streaming it. Back home, this foreign policy rodeo has turned into a grocery receipt problem because energy shocks do not stay politely overseas. Oil prices rising near triple digits means gas, shipping, food, and basically everything with wheels gets more expensive. Regular folks do not feel the strategic posture or maritime doctrine. They feel the pump sounding like it is charging admission to a theme park. Congress is pushing back with a war powers resolution because nothing wakes up elected officials faster than voters realizing the war of choice is baked into the price of eggs. And if you are wondering who benefits, do not look at the guy buying bologna with quarters. Look at the banks, oil companies, and defense contractors grinning like raccoons at an unlocked buffet. Segment 4. War hurts wallets, but Wall Street gets dessert. While regular people calculate whether they can afford gasoline and name-brand cereal, major banks, oil giants, and defense contractors are having the kind of quarter that makes champagne nervous. J.P. Morgan's trading desk reportedly hauled in huge revenue from market volatility, which is a polite way of saying the world got unstable and somebody found a cash register in the smoke. Shell and Total Energies got lifted by energy prices, while defense contractors like Lockheed Martin, Boeing, and Northrop Grumman stacked up record backlogs because weapons do not sell themselves unless everybody is terrified. It is a weird economy when your budget is crying at the pump, but a defense spreadsheet is doing the electric slide. Inflation is the ugly cousin who shows up late, eats the deviled eggs, and makes the whole reunion cost more. Forecasts point to higher headline inflation because energy prices seep into everything, from groceries to deliveries to that mysterious service fee that appears like a ghost on every bill. The Federal Reserve is holding rates steady instead of cutting, which means mortgages are still heavy enough to qualify as gym equipment. Housing is slowing, borrowing is expensive, and the American dream now comes with a monthly payment that looks like a ransom note. Then, in the middle of this wallet tornado, the tech world says, what if one private rocket company became worth more than the common sense left in the nation? Segment 5. SpaceX, AI, and the Billionaire Control Panel. SpaceX is heading toward a giant public offering, and the numbers sound less like finance and more like somebody sneezed into a calculator during a fever dream. A company can be losing billions, burning cash on Starship, satellites, and artificial intelligence infrastructure, and still walk into the market with a valuation so huge it makes old industrial giants look like lemonade stands. Starlink brings in the bulk of the revenue. The launch business gives SpaceX leverage, and investors are betting the future will be rockets, internet from the sky, and Elon Musk steering with both hands and maybe one foot. The dual-class share structure means Musk keeps overwhelming voting control, which is corporate governance the same way my uncle's shed is a licensed airport because he painted a runway on the gravel. At the same time, the government is pushing artificial intelligence deeper into national security, with the NSA helping define powerful frontier models and agencies asking companies for access before release. They call parts of it voluntary, but voluntary in Washington often means you do not have to do it unless you enjoy losing contracts, reputation, and invitations to the big table. So now we have private tech empires getting enormous, military intelligence getting more involved in AI, and state politics being shaped by targeted tech money that works better than one billionaire trying to buy charisma by the pallet. Power is getting concentrated in fewer hands, whether it wears a suit, a uniform, or a rocket logo hoodie. And if the rest of us want to say, We better pay attention before democracy becomes a subscription service with ads. In conclusion, today's news feels like somebody dumped the Justice Department, spy agencies, the Middle East, Wall Street, housing, rocket billionaires, and artificial intelligence into one rusty feed grinder and called it leadership. The same pattern keeps showing up everywhere. Power moves upward, money moves sideways, and regular folks get told to be patient while the price of existing goes up. That is not a news cycle. That is a raccoon trapped in a ceiling fan, and somehow we are all supposed to clap because the stock market liked the breeze.